What's up guys, and welcome back to a brand new YouTube video. Today we are doing a boarding school story time. And now lots of people apparently have this idea that boarding school is very fancy and like where rich kids go. That was not the situation for me. I'm gonna try to tell my boarding school experience as chronologically as I can, but it is a big foggy mess in my brain because I was like not enjoying myself at all. Can I just say that flame is ginormous. Why? I don't think I can leave that there. Like, I'm gonna have to blow this candle out because this is ridiculous. This is gonna actually like cause a house fire. Let's get into the story though. So, people that have heard my coming out story time do have this context already, so I'm sorry that you have to sit through it again. But basically, I was 13 years old and I was presented with the option to choose what I wanted to study. When you're in Belgium, you already like choose a niche when you're like about 12, 11 years old. And you can choose a bunch of things. You can choose like science-based, you can choose language-based, you can choose fashion-based, animal-based, farming-based. Like you can choose a whole bunch of things. Like a job that you can think of, we have something that's like directed towards that. And now I wanted to go study fashion, but my parents didn't allow me to do that. So I looked for the next best option, which was animal care. However, animal care was only available in schools that were like at least an hour away from me, but I really didn't know what else to do with my life and my time, so I decided to go for animal care anyway. But my parents did say that I was gonna have to attend the boarding school that was optional at the school, because you could attend the animal care school without going to boarding school. But I mean, I was 13 years old and my mom didn't really trust me taking the train all the way like across the province. So she said, yeah, okay, just stay at the boarding school. And I was like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. I arrived there the first day. They showed me my room, and this is the room. Horrible. The floor was cold as shit. The whole year through, that floor, when you touched it, it was like Elsa just peed on it, girl. It was so fucking cold. And it was very ugly. It was very small. But you know, we had the essentials. I couldn't complain, you know. And I started decorating my room a little bit, you know, with whatever, like a color changing lamp and whatnot. And then I start meeting some of the people there, and everybody's room is just filled with tractor pictures. And I'm like, since when do people like tractors that much? Like, I had no idea that was like a thing people liked, but almost every single room was filled with tractors. And then I come to find out this is a farming school, so mainly the people at the boarding school were actually farmers, and I was a little 13-year-old gay boy, so that wasn't really, that didn't really match that well, because they weren't just regular farmers, okay? Just to give you an idea, these were the types of people that peed on doorknobs for fun, peed in spray bottles for fun, peed everywhere for fun. Like, I really don't know what was going on. But the first couple days that I was settling in, I was shy. Of course, I didn't want to talk to these farmers, like, no shade, like they were very intimidating, and I saw the way they were, like on the very first day, and I was like, I don't really want to talk to these people, you know? Like, I'm good, you know, I'll just stay in my own corner, play Roblox in my room, and then boom. No Wi-Fi for the first 2 whole days. I was being set up, okay? I was being set up so bad. And so what I did, instead of socializing with these insane farmers, I sat in my room and I called my mom on my Nokia brick phone for 2 hours straight, 2 nights in a row. She was honestly an angel for letting me do that in the first place. Every time we like hung up, I would just like call back in 10 minutes because I was like, hey queen, I'm bored and scared. But yeah, anyway, they would pee on the bathroom doorknob, so every time somebody like tried to get in the bathroom, they could laugh about it. So this is where I learned the reflex. I never touch bathroom doorknobs anymore. Like when I've washed my hands and I'm exiting the male restroom, I will find any other way to open the door, but I am not connecting my hand with this doorknob because that's just ingrained into my brain now. Even in quarantine, I was there from 2018 to 2023 in that school. Even in quarantine, they would pee in the disinfectant spray bottles, and so when we had to get on the animal care bus and go to the farm with all the animals, they would make us spray the spray on our fingers, in our hands, and we could not enter the bus without spraying this liquid disinfectant on our hands. But it was piss. Oh, and we all sat there with pee hands the whole bus ride. What the fuck? So I just used to wash my hands when I got to the farm. But yeah, they got in a lot of trouble, and after continuously getting in trouble, they ended up getting everybody in trouble because how the system worked was the first and second years shared a hallway, the third and fourth years shared a hallway, and then the fifth and sixth years they shared a hallway. And I started attending the school in my third year. I was with the third years and fourth years, and now these people kept pressing the fire alarm for no reason, and every time they pulled the fire alarm, the entire boarding school would have to evacuate and all go into the cafeteria. And this happened 1, 2, 3 times too much. I think by the third or fourth time, they figured out who was pulling the fire alarm. Well, not exactly who, but they knew it was coming from our hallway. And so what they did with this information is, this is a December night, mid-exams, we're all in the cafeteria because the fire alarm was pulled. And all of a sudden, the director of the boarding school says, this hallway needs to stay. Everybody else, you can return to your room. And so everybody from my hallway stays seated while everybody else goes back to their dorms and their rooms. And we're just sat there in anticipation, waiting for what's about to happen. And what they tell us is to stand up, everybody spread out 5 meters and face the wall. Okay, now put your hands on your head and spread your legs. So I was stood there like this.
My bitch pose is nasty.
And guess how long they had to stand like that for? Until they find out who did it. Mind you, it was already 9 p.m. at night, and we had an exam the next day. We stayed there, stood like this, until about 2 in the morning. While we were stood like that, every teacher took their turn, and the director took their turn to scream at everybody, to berate everybody. Everybody was basically just facing the punishment of pulling this fire alarm. But girl, I had nothing to do with that, yet I was stood there for so many hours with my hands on my head and my legs spread like, girl, can I go? At some point during our punishment, they started interrogating us one by one to see who actually pressed the fire alarm. And when they pulled me aside, they told me, we already know it's not you, but do you have like any intel or something? Can I just go home? I didn't say it like that, but I was like, no, I do not have any intel. And if I did, I would have told y'all by now because I'm tired as fuck and I have to make an exam in the morning. And they were like, are you sure you would tell us? And I was like, duh, can I go? They didn't let me go. I had to go stand back in my place with my hands on my head and my legs spread. And then they just yelled at us some more. And after a certain point, they started just guessing who did it. So they started pulling random boys aside and they're like, okay, this is the guy that did it. And then they would just yell at him about everything until he like was crying. And he was like begging somebody else to admit they did it. But nobody else was admitting they did it because, you know, I still don't know who actually did it. At some point, they gave up around like 2 a.m. and they started sending waves of us back home. So like they figured out me and a couple of the other like people that never really did anything wrong. They just sent us to our room. And I don't really know how long the others stayed there. But girl, it was so intense. Like I think that's the most intense thing I've ever experienced. I mean, I wasn't really stressing because I knew I didn't do it, but it was such a horrible like environment to be in for a while. But yeah, that's a nice little introduction to what my year was like in 2018. I feel like I'm explaining this all over the place as well. But like I said in the beginning, this is a very vague cloud in my brain. Like I just don't really remember that much from it because of how intense it was. But let me get into another aspect of this boarding school that was really bad. We didn't really have privacy at this boarding school because they wanted to make sure we weren't doing anything bad. You couldn't lock your door from the inside, so if you were like getting dressed, that was a risk. And now, we had a teacher that really liked to just walk the hallway back and forth and then pick a random door and open it immediately to catch somebody in the act of anything. But I just think at a boys' boarding school that's like a really bad idea, and I think everybody can kind of guess why. But I remember like all of us being like, that's not okay to do, and they would just laugh it off. Girl, like, I could be butt booty naked right now, and you're still, it's just like, it feels like a big invasion of privacy. You constantly felt like you had no personal, like, safe space, because people could just invade it. And on that topic of having no privacy, the showers were stall showers. Very great. However, the doors didn't connect to the floor, and the reflections worked like mirrors. And now there was one guy who was bi, and his friends told me he liked me. He used to stand outside my shower and stare at the reflection. I didn't really care enough to say anything. But there was really just no privacy at this boarding school, really. Also, back to punishments. The thing was, you could only go to your room starting from 8 p.m. Before 8 p.m., you just had to hang out outside. I didn't fucking feel like doing that. I did not want to be around the farmers peeing on everything. I wanted to go to my room and watch Jenna Marbles. So what I figured out is you could go to your room early at 7 p.m. to study. I never used that hour for studying. But in the winter, it gets cold as fuck outside. It was like -8 degrees, and we were just forced to stand outside and wait until they would let us in at 7 p.m. But at some point, we all stopped waiting. Everybody that wanted to go study in their room at 7 p.m. And we just went upstairs at 7 p.m. and waited outside the hallway because it was cold outside. And they got tired of that. We were supposed to wait outside, and so we got sent back. But I just kept doing that. You know, I didn't really feel like waiting outside, so I just kept already going upstairs. They got so tired of it, they gave me room arrest. I couldn't leave my room anymore. Thank you. That's literally all I wanted, was to be stuck in my room. Now, there was a worse punishment where you had to be stuck in your room and they took all your devices, and that would have been horrible. But no, they just forced me to be in my room at all times. And that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't have to deal with none of the farmers anymore. I could go shower whenever I wanted to. I could use the bathroom when nobody else was in the hallway because I was the only one in the hallway. It was fucking good. That was supposed to be a punishment, but girl, that was bliss. I was there from September 2018 till March of 2020 when quarantine started. The way I escaped boarding school, I'm gonna call it escaping boarding school because I'm not just gonna call it leaving because it felt like an escape to me. When quarantine started in 2020 in March, the night before, my hallway teacher had called me over to his office to arrange a study planner, and he had planned in so much for me to study for the Easter exams. I already knew I wasn't gonna do that. But the next morning, I wake up, I go to breakfast, and he tells me, oh, you won't have to follow your study planner anymore. And I was like, what? Why? And he was like, oh, everybody needs to go home because of quarantine. Oh my God. Oh my God, I was so, I'd never heard better news. I could stay home from boarding school. That was incredible. And so my quarantine was fucking amazing because I just came from hell. And then I was dropped into time at home, and it was great weather. It was amazing. So I think the contrast of boarding school to quarantining at home made it so good for me. And there's so much more I could talk about boarding school, but it's also like hyper specific little stories. But yeah, I basically told you the most extreme parts of my journey right now. If you guys want more story times, definitely let me know. I'm gonna wrap it up here. So I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know what other kind of story times you guys would like. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, maybe leave a comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.